The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Hello and welcome to Age-Friendly Caledon Conversations. This is a segment series where we talk about support and services for older people in the Caledon area. Today we're going to be talking about mental well-being and later in the program about elder abuse. I'm your host, Ken Weber, and my guests today are James Labar of the Caledon OPP, and you are the mental health coordinator.
Yes, thank you so
for
much for having
the
me.
Caledon detachment, and Laura Smenderovac, who is team lead, make sure I get this right, team lead at 24/7 Crisis Support Peel Dufferin.
That's
and this
right.
is under the auspices of the Canadian Mental Health Association. Is that correct?
That's right.
I'll begin with you, if I may, Laura, because we're going to be talking about the mobile crisis program.
Yes.
And when I preface your title with 24/7, it makes it sound urgent. So can you give us an overview of what the mobile crisis program is?
Yep, so there's many facets to it. So the 24/7 aspect of it is through our crisis line. So someone can call into our crisis line anytime and speak to a worker. So it be at 3 a.m., 3 p.m., a holiday, whatever, they can speak to a registered health professional. So we're comprised of social workers, nurses, occupational therapists.
Can I just interrupt you for a second when you say crisis line?
Yes.
I scrape around in my head for a number, and maybe I'll address this to James. Would 911 accomplish this?
No, 911 would be more for emergencies and whatnot. Crisis line would be more so if you're looking for supports, if you're looking for someone to maybe, if you're feeling really low that day, you want someone to kind of talk with you and walk you through things, such like that.
That's an important distinction. Then.
Yes.
Crisis line is going to appear on the screen at the end of our discussion here. So, okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I thought that was important to clear up. So would you explain a little more about what happens when someone calls your crisis line?
Yeah, for sure. So they'll talk to a worker and they'll explain what's happening. So if it's around a mental health crisis, need for support for a loved one, which we also help with, or just general information on what kind of supports are available in the community, we will be able to help over the phone. And if the person is in need of a face-to-face visit, so it might be because they don't really communicate well over the phone, they feel like they need that in-person connection, our team, so that's where the mobile aspect comes in, and that's where we're partnered with OPP, and we will attend to someone's home and we'll sit down with them and explain again our services, but also go through what resources we can connect that person with in the moment, and also de-escalate and help really make them feel supported.
So this call might be at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And do you then go out at 2 o'clock in the morning, James?
No, I would not. So currently our unit runs between 10 and 7 Monday through Friday. And if it's a 911 call, I would be attending the live 911 call with my crisis worker partner. If they're calling at 2 o'clock in the morning and let's say it does turn into an emergency, they will dial 911 and police will be attending along with EMS if needed.
So if police personnel are needed.
Yes.
So let's suppose the police personnel are not needed. Laura, what happens? Does someone from your department go out or can you possibly arrange to go a little later, or
Yes.
the point is that you respond in the best possible way you can?
Yes, so right now in the middle of the night we don't go out, but we will arrange to go in the daytime if it's not emergency. So for example, if the person's able to stay safe for that evening or that night, and we can arrange for a team to go out the next day, we will arrange for that. We also do sometimes go out as 2 crisis workers if we deem it's not a really high risk situation. So for example, it can be an older person who's feeling lonely, really over the phone's not really working for them, and then they feel like they need connection to social programs. So that might be something that 2 crisis workers could even go to during the day.
And without asking for dramatic situations, what would be the most common reason for someone to call your line?
To be honest, a lot of it is to just ask, what help can I get? And so that's the number one reason. So we do deal with people that might be experiencing suicidal ideation and so forth, but a lot of it is someone is just asking for help. I'm not feeling good, I'm not feeling well, or I'm worried about someone. I don't know who else to talk to about this. I don't know if I should call 911. And so we're sometimes that middleman that can help people make decisions on what needs to be done.
That's really useful information, very valuable to know, because the implication of crisis line makes me think almost immediately that I have to be in absolutely dire straits or threatened or being threatened by someone else in order to call that line. So the majority of calls then are for support, for something that can be preventative and healing rather than remedial and urgent care. That's really very good. Give me an example how then you de-escalate a situation for an adult. An adult calls and they need some kind of help. And I'm thinking mostly of senior adults, of course.
So first we just ask what's happening, right? We really want to know what their story is. We usually work on active listening too, trying to paraphrase. So if someone's saying, I'm lonely, okay, so I hear you're lonely. Do you have anyone with you? Are you living with anyone? So we ask kind of a conversational probing questions. We don't want it to sound super formal, but we also want to be professional. So we ask around like safety, what's happening, really what are they defining their crisis as, right? So a crisis can be anything from someone can say they lost their pet recently, to their loved one went into long-term care. That's sometimes where we get a crisis. Or it could be, I'm worried about my loved one.
I see. Well, then, tell me then, James, when do you get involved? I mean, you say it's a daytime thing, and then you are the mental health coordinator. Right. So this makes you gives you a level of expertise that some of your colleagues in the detachment may not have.
Yeah, so for example, I've been trained with mental health awareness, mental health first aid. Prior to my police work, I worked with victim services, so I got a lot of trauma training through them. And also a lot of de-escalating training, like for example, just meeting them where they are, showing empathy. And I get usually involved if it's either a 911 call or if they schedule a follow-up visit, and I can attend in plain clothes if need be. So maybe this is a little too intimidating for them and they're just a little bit worried about either police being there or people in the neighborhood seeing them. I ride around in an unmarked vehicle, so it's very low-key.
Do you go in uniform, and do you attend in uniform?
I will either attend in uniform or in plain clothes. It's up to the client. So they, for example, they just say, I'm not very comfortable with a full uniform officer. I can attend in plain clothes if need be.
I see.
Yeah.
And so this wouldn't necessarily mean you'd have the neighbors all peeking out the window. Correct. As the marked police car shows up at the same time.
Unmarked vehicle, I wear a jacket usually over my duty belt, so very much is just kind of like a friendly person just attending the door.
I see. That seems like a very good. So, generally speaking, this program is for the Caledon community, but, well, I should say for Peel Dufferin, but for Caledon, James would attend, and if it were in Caledon, it might be you, Laura, or it might be one of your colleagues.
Yes.
Because so let's take you to a call. You appear at the home of someone who said that I'm having a suicide ideation, I'm feeling very, very lonely, there's all kinds of things wrong in my life. How often do you plan to call on that person?
So typically we would try our best to see that person face to face at least once, and then the crisis line, we usually do up to about 3 maintenance calls while we're trying to connect them to other services. So we also do have, depending on what the scenario is, we do have a nurse on our team that's called a Behavioral Supports Ontario nurse. And so his job is to actually help with people that are the older adults that are experiencing cognitive decline. So he helps with family members, and he's quite quick picking up the caseload, so it's not like you're waiting months. It could be a couple days. And so if that's the concern, we might connect the client right to this worker.
So then, once you've made this call and you're involved in the situation, is that person registered somewhere? And this gets into an issue of privacy or something, doesn't it?
Yes, so we do document all our interactions in a secure system. And so we do take privacy very seriously. So unless we have consent, we won't release any information. So for example, if you called into our crisis line and said, I don't want my neighbor to know, and your neighbor called us asking like, hey, I saw your team was here yesterday, we wouldn't even we wouldn't confirm that we were out, because we do really respect people's privacy. And to access that level of information, we have a whole privacy department, and we have, since we're registered health professionals, we have to follow our PHIPAA guidelines.
Of course, I assume that. Can I call on behalf of someone I know? Does it have to be the individual?
Nope. So we do get calls from family members, neighbors, friends, whoever is concerned, either to, sometimes it might be a personal support worker that came into a home that was concerned about someone. So we could take referrals from anyone.
Okay, so that there isn't an obligation on the part of your group to receive the call only from the person involved.
That's right.
It must broaden the situation a great deal more. So that Caledon obviously is benefiting a great deal from this kind of program. I have to ask, how frequently do you get calls now? I mean, did you tell me how many people are in your group in Peel?
So our team consists of about, what would it be, almost 40 people. They're 40 crisis workers, because we work 24 hours, 7 days a week, right? So with our rotational basis, we have a large team. For Caledon, how many calls do you think you go to?
So ever since the COVID pandemic, the calls have gone up, but anywhere between maybe 10 to 15 mental health calls a week.
Is that right? That frequently? And, it's really so helpful knowing that you're there, knowing that this can be done. I'm going to take this information home. My wife is looking after her 101-year-old brother, who is physically quite able and most of the time is mentally quite stable, but every once in a while there's an issue where that develops. And by the way, I should ask that question too, because being a senior, I'm very sensitive to my own capacity and my own mental well-being. Do you find the percentage of seniors greater than, let's say, people in their middle age or younger?
I wouldn't. For example, a lot of the times it is a very wide range of age. There's seniors, middle age, and youth. And we do have other programs to assist each age group. Like, for example, with the youth, anybody 18 and under, we have something called Every Mind. So if you do call the crisis line, you have an option 1, which gets you to a crisis worker that deals mainly with the youth of 18 and under. And also, if you press option 2, you get 18 and older.
Excellent. This is excellent. This has been most informative and very useful. At the end of this segment, your numbers will again appear on the screen, and so that people can take down the number of the crisis line. We've been speaking to Laura Smenerovac and James Labar, and we're very grateful for your being here. Thank you.
Thank you. So much.
Now we should pretend that we're talking, okay?
This is you volunteering at Rogers TV. Directing TV is the cat's meow. This is you on location reporting on special events in your community. Way to go, Ace. This is you editing video at Rogers TV. Now you're cooking with gas. Why are you there when you can be here, creating TV at your fingertips? Hot diggity dog.
welcome back. And first of all, thank you to our former guests, James Labar and Laura Smenarovac, who spoke to us about mental well-being. Our guest for this segment is Laura Proctor, who is appearing to us virtually. So it'll be my first experience with this kind of thing, with speaking to someone on a computer. Laura is a prevention consultant with Elder Abuse Ontario, and going to speak to us today about various kinds of elder abuse, financial scams, financial abuse, and so on toward older adults. I mean, as soon as you hear that word elder abuse, if you're my age, you prick up your ears immediately. And I actually have an example of a scam. Just yesterday, my wife, who is the same age as I am, got a call from what appeared to be our grandson in a police station, having had an alleged accident and desperately needed money to pay bail so he wouldn't have to stay there in the police department or in jail, wherever that would be. And he knew a remarkable amount of information about my wife and me, and his voice must have been AI, because his voice was almost a perfect match for this particular grandson, who is in his early 20s. My wife asked the question, where were you born? Because she was suspicious, and the person immediately hung up. Is this a fairly typical example of a grandparent scam?
Yeah, so Ken, you've highlighted a typical, what we call an emergency scam or a grandparent scam. Unfortunately, seniors across Canada are being targeted in the exact way that you outlined, where the scammer is preying on our vulnerabilities is first and foremost what scammers do. They know they're going to garnish our attention when there's a family member in trouble and needs your assistance. So the scammers will always act as though there's a real sense of emergency. So you need to act right away. There's such urgency in what's going on. The takeaway with this scenario is that if we protect our online accounts, what your family members are sharing, what you're sharing online, these scammers won't be able to get our information that they easily used and preyed upon you yesterday. I hope your wife hung up, because that would be my recommendation.
Oh, she did indeed. And as soon as she asked him a question he couldn't answer, he hung up. But she was actually intrigued by it. I think she sensed a scam right away, because we're now hearing a lot about this. And I am assuming that your organization is dispensing a lot of information about scams. And we're certainly aware of them.
Yeah, we absolutely are constantly educating, not only on elder abuse, but on specific frauds and scams that are out there in our communities. Fraudsters, this is a full-time business for them. So they're constantly, as we're speaking right now, Ken, they're coming up with a new fraud or scam that we've never even heard of. So as soon as I educate on one type of scam or fraud, I'm always mindful that by tonight, there's going to be something I've never heard of. So follow your gut, be really mindful of what you share, and those are the best ways to really protect yourself and your loved ones and your hard-earned money.
Yes, the financial abuse is just one area too, isn't it, of elder abuse?
Yeah, so I think it's important to really paint a picture what elder abuse is. So I want to start with defining what elder abuse is and how it's a little bit different than a fraud or scam. So elder abuse stands alone as its own issue, where it's typically a single or repeated act against a senior, where there's that relationship. So for a scam, there's no relationship. With pure elder abuse, there's always that expectation of trust, and that person doesn't uphold what they should be doing for the senior. So there's emotional abuse, there's financial abuse, there's sexual abuse, there's neglect, and these are always at the hands of somebody that we love and trust. Unfortunately, year in and year out here in Canada, across Ontario as well. Financial abuse is the most prevalent form of elder abuse, and that's usually through power of attorney. So if somebody has power of attorney over a senior, that gives them the opportunity to abuse that role as power of attorney. And now for a fraud or scam, that's in a separate category where we don't have a relationship with the fraudster, and they're desperate to get their hands in our pockets. And all of us are affected. Younger generations are also affected by scams, but here in Ontario, seniors are overrepresented as far as being victims of a fraud or a scam.
How can I, as a senior, protect myself? First of all, let's start with financial scams, and let's take, goodness, I hope I would never even have to think about this, about the kind of physical abuse that is implied by elder abuse. Let's start with financial scam. How do I protect myself?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have some really simple things we can all do so be aware of your vulnerabilities. We all have vulnerabilities, and usually that lies in a sense of duty to our family. So the scam that you outlined, that your wife almost fell victim to, they were preying on her vulnerabilities, on her natural love for her grandson. So be aware that they're going to, the best way to our money is through our vulnerabilities, which is our relationships with our families. So I always giggle because it goes back to the advice all of our mothers gave us when we were kids is, if somebody that you don't know is telling you something that sounds too good to be true, so that's normally with investment scams, so you're going to make 30% on this investment, that we all know common sense has to ring in where it just sounds too good to be true. So that little voice that we all have, we need to listen to that voice. That if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Don't be afraid to say no. That is my second most important advice I can give anybody, is we are raised to respect authority, to listen to people. When a scammer is making the story sound very urgent, we want to say yes, because most of us are helpers, and most of us are polite Canadians, and we were raised to not say no. So I encourage all of you that sometimes we have to be abrupt, maybe be rude, hang up the phone, say no. Don't be mindless when it comes to staying on top of security features on your computer. So a lot of us, we don't like to, I'm not going to name any companies, but we know the companies that we should be securing our computers with. So having antivirus programs, make sure that you're mindful that you're staying on top of antivirus software, because that will protect you from the scammers getting your information in the first place. If you're looking to donate, so there's charity scams out there. If you're looking to donate, do your research. Don't give your money away unless you know the organization is actually a registered charitable nonprofit. So do your research. Never give out any personal information. An absolute no. So online, don't be posting when you're planning to go to the Greek Isles, because then people will know you're outside, you're away from your home. Try within reason not to post too much personal information as to when grandchildren were born, where grandchildren were born, all of that stuff that we nowadays seem to feel like we need to share with everybody and anybody, literally. So be mindful of what you're posting on Facebook or wherever you're on social media. And then the last thing is protect your online accounts. Always create new passwords. Don't use, your first name and the year you were born. There's password generating software that can generate unusual passwords that people can't break into. So if you're anything like my parents, they have a notebook with all of their passwords. Don't do that. and keep them up to date, those passwords.
May I just turn briefly to the physical part of it, a bothersome issue of physical abuse of an elder. There are two questions I have on that. One being, if I or someone becomes aware that an elder is being abused physically, to whom do we report that? How do we deal with that?
So a physical abuse or physical assault, just like anyone in younger age categories, you need to contact your local police service and make a statement in regards to the assault. You can always reach out to our organization. We do in-depth case consultations on really unique or complex cases of maybe physical abuse. We need to be mindful that if you think somebody is being physically abused, most times there's another form of abuse coexisting. So typically it would be financial abuse or emotional abuse alongside physical abuse. So it's rarely just one form of abuse occurring in that trusted relationship.
So there's always the old "I don't want to get involved" issue, and is reporting on someone, does that make you liable if you do that?
No. No, so there's no mandatory report for elder abuse in our community. Within long-term care and retirement, there's mandatory reports. So that old adage of "I don't want to get involved" is eliminated with legislation here in Ontario for that mandatory. You must report any type of elder abuse in long-term care or retirement home. But 90% of our seniors here in Ontario live in the community. So that means that most are in that non-mandatory report. I would encourage reporting based on morals and ethics. It's the right thing to do, and sometimes doing the right thing in this world is not the easy thing. That's my only recommendation.
That's a good recommendation. I'm pretty much out of time here. I just want to say that, or ask you, for anyone who has concerns about elder abuse, they would be able to contact your office. The screen, that numbers and appropriate information will appear on the screen very shortly when we're finished here, but they can contact you for advice on what to do, can they?
Absolutely. I encourage everyone just to reach out to our office, talk to myself or one of my colleagues, and we'll be able to advise you on the next steps.
Thank you very much. Laura, we've been speaking to Laura Proctor, who is the prevention consultant with Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario. Very good information, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you for joining us today. Today has been our discussion of mental well-being and elder abuse. You can tune in to Age-Friendly Caledon Conversations on Rogers TV or on YouTube for further information concerning these programs, or you can contact Age-Friendly Caledon Conversations directly by phoning 311 or emailing adult55@caledon.ca or visiting the website online at www.caledon.ca/adult55, where you can sign up for the monthly newsletter from Age-Friendly Caledon. Thank you again, and do join us again for the next segment.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
We can be hurt. We can be bruised. We can be broken, slowed down,